KL Publications presents Father, Forgive Them. Navigating Relationships with Narcissistic Loved Ones with Compassion and Boundaries by Ryan C. Sanders. Jade Reynolds was an exceptionally smart, wise woman, proud of her ethnic roots that ran deep through generations of resilience and love. Raised by a single mother who had taught her that strength often comes from silence and observation, Jade had cultivated an inner world rich with knowledge, patience, and the grace to navigate the most difficult of circumstances. Her life was marked by achievements. She was the first in her family to graduate from college. She had built a thriving career in social work. She had a network of loving friends. Yet her most significant challenge came not in her professional life, but in her relationship with the one person she loved the most, her husband, Marcus. Marcus was a magnetic force, charming, spontaneous, the kind of man who lit up the room the moment he walked in. He was admired by all for his quick wit and his captivating stories. But behind that charm lay a darker truth. Marcus had the traits of a textbook narcissist. He craved attention, fed off praise, and became incensed when things didn't go his way. Their relationship had always been a dance between his demands for validation and her innate desire to make things work. For years, Jade had excused his behavior. She told herself that his self-centeredness came from a place of insecurity, that he didn't mean the cutting remarks he made about her intelligence or the way he belittled her success. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," she would often whisper to herself, borrowing from the words of Jesus, hoping that compassion could soothe the turbulent waters for their marriage. But as time passed, it became increasingly clear that Marcus' behavior was not just a phase. His consistent need for admiration, his disregard for her feelings, and his manipulation tactics left her drained. Yet, every time she thought about walking away, his charisma would pull her back in. He'd apologize in his own way, not with words, but with grand gestures that made her forget for a brief moment the pain he caused. One evening, after a particularly cruel argument in which Marcus had blamed her for his career setback, Jade found herself sitting alone in the living room, tears streaming down her face. She had tried to reason with him, but it was like talking to the wall. His perception of reality was so screwed that he couldn't see the damage he was doing. In that moment, Jade realized something profound. She couldn't change him. Jade had always believed that love meant sacrifice, but now she saw that there were limits to what she could sacrifice without losing herself. She pulled out her journal, something she had started keeping years ago, and began writing. Her mind raced with thoughts of the 17 steps she had come across in her recent research on managing relationships with narcissistic people. These steps weren't about controlling Marcus's behavior. They were about preserving her own peace and self-respect in the face of his unconscious antics. First step, she reminded herself, was recognizing the signs. Jade had always known Marcus had narcissistic tendencies, but she had never fully admitted it to herself. Now she could see clearly the manipulation, the lack of empathy, the constant need to be the center of attention. That night, Jade made a decision. She was no longer going to feed his ego. In the past, she would complimented him to keep the peace, offered him validation when he was feeling low, and adjusted her own need to accommodate his moods. But now she would stop. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. She realized that every time she praised him, she was reinforcing his sense of superiority, making it harder for her to stand her ground. The next morning, when Marcus woke up and began his usual routine of complaining about the world and fishing for compliments, Jade responded calmly and neutrally. She practiced the gray rock method, making herself as emotionally unengaging as possible. Just like a gray rock on the side of the road, She didn't argue or feed into his drama, and to her surprise, he quickly lost interest. Over the next few weeks, Jade set firm boundaries. When Marcus attempted to manipulate her with guilt trips or emotional outbursts, she didn't budge. She calmly reiterated her limits and walked away. When he tried to escalate the situation, it wasn't easy. Every boundary she set felt like a battle, but each time she grew stronger. Jade's biggest challenge came when Marcus, sensing that he was losing control, began throwing tantrums. These were not quiet, sulking kind. They were explosive, filled with accusations and hurtful words. But Jade had learned not to take it personally. She had come to understand that his behavior was a reflection of his own insecurities, not a measure of her worth. In the midst of one of these tirades, Marcus accused her of being ungrateful, of not appreciating all that he had done for her. But instead of reacting, Jade calmly responded, "I understand that you're upset, but I won't let you speak to me that way. When you're ready to have a respectful conversation, I'll be here." To her surprise, Marcus stopped mid-sentence. He had expected her to argue, to defend herself, to validate his feelings as she always had. But her calmness disarmed him. For the first time in their relationship, Marcus didn't know what to say. That night, Jade reflected on the shift she felt within herself. She had spent so many years trying to fix Marcus, trying to make him see the error of his ways. But now she realized that wasn't her job. Her job was to protect her own peace, to maintain her self-respect, and to navigate the relationship with compassion, not control. In her moments of prayer and meditation, Jade found herself returning to the words of Jesus, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." She realized that Marcus, like many narcissists, was acting out of deep-seated wounds and unconscious patterns. His behavior wasn't an intentional attempt to hurt her. It was the only way that he knew how to navigate the world. And while that didn't excuse his actions at all, it allowed her to approach the situation with compassion rather than resentment. Compassion, however, did not mean tolerating abuse. Jade understood that setting boundaries was an act of love, both for herself and for Marcus. By refusing to engage in his drama and manipulation, she was giving him the opportunity to reflect on his behavior. Whether or not he would take that opportunity was up to him. Over time, Jade noticed small changes in their dynamic. Marcus, sensing that his usual tactics no longer worked, and he began to adjust. He didn't stop being a narcissist, but he became less aggressive, less manipulative. Their relationship, while still far from perfect, reached a place of relative peace. Jade knew that Marcus might never fully change, but she had learned how to manage the relationship in a way that preserved her dignity. She no longer sought his validation, no longer twisted herself into knots trying to make him happy. Instead, she focused on her own growth, her own peace. In the end, Jade realized that the key to navigating a relationship with a narcissist loved one wasn't about changing them. It was about changing herself. By maintaining compassion and setting firm boundaries, she had found a way to protect her heart without hardening it. As she closed her journal, one evening, Jade smiled to herself. She had to come to an understanding that love wasn't about losing yourself in another person. It was about finding a balance between compassion and self-respect, between forgiveness and boundaries. And in that balance, she had found a peace that no one, not even Marcus, could take away. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe.